So kind of along the same lines, while I do believe that rape culture doesn't exist on a societal level, there's institutions, specifically the military, where I think they cultivate a environment where rape culture could exist or does exist. If you look back, even all the way till from World War II, there have been reports of American GIs, getting in trouble raping women all the way up through Vietnam, and still now. And in 2009 or 2010, the rapes and sexual assaults among women service members was around 20%, and recently that has jumped up. What would your response be to that argument, or that rape culture exists in the military?
First of all, I think that men in wars tend to act worse than men not in wars, because people in wars tend to act worse than people not in wars as a general rule. And if we want to compare apples to apples, you can't compare civilian men in a society where they live with a woman at home to men who are, in a jungle for 6 months. And this is not a sympathetic take, right? I mean, these guys should be executed if they committed a rape. But circumstances are different, and that does change rates. I mean, environments change rates. That's just a basic truism of social science. So, the same thing holds true when it's one of the reasons why I am very skeptical about full female-male integration of military units, for example. I think that is begging for trouble. And that is not a statement about the decency, about how it's okay if men do that. Right? It's just a statement about if we want to be safe and protect women, then we have to take certain measures. It's very funny. Whenever you talk about these topics, it gets very dicey, because if you say things like, well, maybe we ought to take measures that don't put men and women in close proximity when they're not in civilian population, where it's 1,000 men and 1 woman, right? And all it takes is 1 bad man to do something. When you say this, like, oh, well, you're excusing. No, I'm not excusing. I'm saying the guy should be castrated or executed. I don't know how I can say it stronger than that. But it is also the same thing as when people say things like, I will tell young women, don't go to bars and get drunk with men present. Why? Because it's a bad idea. It doesn't mean that it's your fault if something bad happens to you. It's the man's fault for doing something bad. But by the same token, you can put yourself in a higher risk situation, or you can put yourself in a lower risk situation. If I walk around a bad area holding my wallet out, and then somebody robs me, it's not my fault I got robbed, it's the robber's fault. He's the one who did something evil, but it also makes me guilty of participating in behavior that was more risky than if I had not done that. And so it seems to me that if we actually wish to crack down on the problem, consequences are one form, which is what I've talked about, but also taking prophylactic measures that don't actually allow people the opportunity to commit sins like this. And again, I think to slander the American military as uniquely bad is really wrong. I think the record of the American military on everything up to and including murder and rape and war crimes is significantly better than any army in the history of humankind.